Okay, so I'm going to talk about faith today. And I'm not talking strictly about biblical faith or Christian faith or anything like that, but kind of going to speak more broadly about what faith is. And hopefully by the end of the video, I convince you to be faithful in an optimistic future. So, first of all, though, what is faith? Well, faith is kind of like a hope or a belief that something is going to happen in the future. Now, the polarity of that something has yet to be determined, right? That is what we assign, right? We use our free will to design or to assign a polarity to the faith. So if we're faithful that we're going to have a good day tomorrow, then we're faithful in an optimistic future, right? And if we're faithful that we're going to have a bad day tomorrow, then we're faithful in a pessimistic future. It's very easy to see that the optimistic type of faith is preferred to the pessimistic faith, right? But beyond that, what I really want to try to show you here is that depending on whether we choose to be optimistic or pessimistic determines whether we create a better future, or an optimistic future, or a pessimistic future for ourselves. And why is that? Well, let's say that you choose to be pessimistic about tomorrow. Let's say that you're not so sure you're going to be able to pay your mortgage. You're worried about your bills. You're stressed out at work, and you dread going to work the next day, right? If you are pessimistic about that future, what's going to happen is you're going to become defensive, right? That pessimism comes with fear, right? You fear the dread that you're going to feel the next day, and that fear creates defense mechanisms. So if you're worried about paying your mortgage tomorrow, you're going to be less likely to help the homeless man out, right? You're going to be less likely to donate to the homeless man or to the charity. And what that's going to do for the homeless man is going to make him less optimistic. It's going to make him more pessimistic. Now that homeless man is going to also respond in the same way you did. He's going to get more defensive. And now you have a homeless man and a working class citizen who are at odds with each other. They are living in this individualistic structure where they believe it's every man for themselves because they both believe in a pessimistic future. And their individualistic defense mechanisms may even come at the expense of the other person. So if I choose to withhold my donation to the charity or to the homeless man is going to not have money, and he's probably going to defend himself by robbing somebody now, because that's the only way he can make a living. It's the only way he can eat that day, right? So this is what happens when two people choose to live in or choose to have faith in a pessimistic future. But let's say we flip the script and instead we have faith in an optimistic future. Well, now you're not going to be so much worried about the mortgage. You're not going to dread tomorrow. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to say, tomorrow is going to bring abundance. It's going to bring happiness for me. So I'm going to donate to that homeless man. And what's that going to do to the homeless man? Well, it's going to give that homeless man a little bit of reason to be optimistic about tomorrow, right? It's going to feed him that day, and he's going to be less likely to rob somebody else. And the person who gets robbed will inevitably defend themselves in the future. And again, you can see here how belief in a pessimistic future leads to individualistic defense mechanisms, which then create vicious cycles of competition, conflict, ultimately war. Whereas the optimistic outlooks will create goodwill. They will create benevolent cycles of goodwill rather than vicious cycles of evil, we could say. So it's very important to understand how our emotional polarity affects the future. What we can say is that humanity's future will manifest in accordance with the emotional polarity we assign to that future, right? And this makes sense because our actions determine the future, and our future actions are determined by our future expectations, right? Again, if we perceive a pessimistic future, we're going to curl up into a little ball and be on the lookout for threats 24/7. But if we are optimistic about the future, we're going to be open and we're going to be generous and kind. And again, both those pessimistic and optimistic outlooks create vicious and benevolent cycles, okay? So what I'm not doing here, I'm not telling you to have blind faith. I'm giving you a logical argument that directs you logically to have faith and optimism. A lot of people get argued in this facts over feelings or feelings over facts debate. The truth is facts aren't over feelings and feelings aren't over facts. In reality, facts and logic are a tool used to bring about our desired emotional outcome. If we desire to feel good tomorrow, then we should treat people well and be generous so that we create those benevolent cycles. But if we, so what I mean to say here is that it's not facts over feelings or feelings over facts, it's facts for feelings, okay? The facts, the logic that we use is there to bring about our desired emotional outcome. And if you ask me, everybody wants a good emotional outcome tomorrow. They want to feel good today and tomorrow. And the only way to do that is to choose to feel good today so that you can help create the better tomorrow. So, one more aspect I want to get to this, okay? Remember, what I said was that humanity's future will manifest in accordance with the emotional polarity they assign to that future. So, one optimistic person is not enough to change this thing, to change this collective thing that's going on here. We need collective optimism. We need collective consensus in faith in that optimism. And this collective change will manifest changes in society, structural changes, right? So let's imagine that tomorrow everybody wakes up an optimistic person. That's going to bring about changes, okay? And with those changes is going to be what I'm going to call ego death, okay? And you've probably heard people throw the phrase ego death around a lot. And I've never really heard anyone try to define it. And I'm pretty sure I've kind of zeroed in on a good definition for ego death. Here's what ego death is. Ego death is the death of your prioritized identity. All right? So ego death occurs when your prioritized identity butts up against another incompatible identity, right? So as an example, let's say that you identify as an American patriot. You're the guy that's got the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. You got the Confederate flag. You got the American flag. You got all the flags, right? You got the guns. You're the typical, cliche American patriot, and that is your entire identity. Your entire identity is wrapped up as in that American patriotism. Let's say America collapses as a nation. The government just destroys itself. The economy collapses. What's going to happen to your identity as an American patriot? Your identity's got to die because America died. Unless you hold on to something that nobody else is going with, then that identity has to die. Okay, that is an ego death. Again, ego death is the death of your prioritized identity. So, if you're that American patriot and the American nation collapses, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find another identity. Maybe you find another nation. Maybe you gather the remaining Americans and create America anew, right? Or maybe you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture. And rather than trying to find some subgroup identity within humanity, maybe you choose humanity as a whole as your identity. And what this does is it gets rid of all those subgroup identities in your head. So instead of identifying as a national patriot, or instead of identifying as part of a racial group, black, white, Hispanic, or whatever, instead of identifying as part of your culture, or part of a religion, or part of a political group, or political party, now you're identifying as humanity, as your prioritized identity. That doesn't mean you can't like your sports team or you can't like your nation. But what it does mean is that, again, the human identity is prioritized. And what that means is you will be willing to criticize those subgroup identities when they need criticized. So, for example, let's say Iran and America get into a little hot war, right? They start threatening each other. America starts threatening Iran, right? And there's a big debacle over the oil that's going through the strait, right? As is right now. If you remain attached to your human or your American patriot identity, you're going to disregard all of the crimes that are done to Iranian citizens, and by extension, you might even overlook the backlash that comes from that, which is ultimately what humanity's been doing for centuries or millennia. We attack somebody, and we don't quite foresee the return attack, okay? And then it's just a vicious cycle of war, right? So instead, oh, we're gonna say we're gonna allow that ego death to occur. We're gonna allow our American patriot identity to die, and instead we're gonna identify with humanity. And what that does is it allows us to not only support the Iranian citizens, but also support American citizens, right? Just because you support Iran doesn't mean you have to be an enemy of America. You don't want Iranians to attack America either. You don't want anyone to attack anybody, right? So again, that is the prioritization of that human identity. So when these identities die with this, so again, if we imagine everyone wakes up an optimist tomorrow, all of these subgroup identities are going to be deprioritized. Again, you can still enjoy your sports game. You can still be a fan of Ohio State or Michigan, but what you can't do is kill the Michigan fan or the Ohio State fan. It makes a lot of sense, right? It's not that we can't have our teams and our fun in our games, but we don't want it to go so far as to where we're killing each other. Okay? It's quite simple. So in truth, you can even zoom out farther than that human identity. And I'm not really so much focused on getting people to do that at this moment in time, because right now we should first deal with the subgroup identities within humanity. But let's say we zoom out. What would that look like? Well, maybe instead of identifying as a human or with the humanity, you identify with nature more broadly, and that includes all life. So instead of destroying all of the biodiversity, maybe we try to harness biodiversity. We try to create more biodiversity. Maybe instead of destroying forests, just without any care in the world, maybe we cut down this forest, use it to build houses, and then we plant another forest somewhere else so that we can sustain our life on this planet. Or maybe we reduce our consumption of animal products, right? Maybe we demand higher standards or higher animal care in the production of those animal products. Maybe we stop the abuse in the factory farms or something, right? This would be an example of an identity that is rising above the human identity. Now, does that mean that you have to disregard humanity? Well, of course not, because humanity is part of nature. So a lot of people think humans are the worst thing to ever happen to this planet, but in truth, we're just part of nature doing the best we can with what we have. And trust me, every other species on this planet is doing the same. And it just so happens that we're winning right now, if you want to call it winning. It's not really winning because, again, we are part of nature, and the destruction of the biodiversity will reflect back on our own health in a poor manner. But by and large, again, because we're part of humanity, we can because we're part of nature, humanity can identify as part of nature. And we don't need to beat ourselves up because we ate chicken or steak, okay? You can try to reduce the harm in other animals if you want, or not, okay? I'm not a vegan. I'm not trying to preach veganism. I'm just trying to give you examples to kind of explain this concept of ego death. So this is kind of the logic behind optimism. I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not trying to get you to have blind faith in optimism. I'm trying to show you a logical reason why you should be optimistic. And it's not easy to do that, okay? I was pessimistic for 27 years of my life. 27 years, almost 28. I know what it's like for someone to tell you to be optimistic when you hate your life. Okay, I know exactly what it's like. And I'm not even telling you that this video is going to be the thing that flips the switch, because it's not going to be. But what it might do is plant a seed in your head. And one day, that seed might grow, and it might make a lot of sense to you. One day, maybe you'll come back to this video and say, oh, I understand what you're saying now. And ultimately, that brings into question what the point of this video is. I'm just trying to plant seeds, okay? Like I said, I can't change your mind. All I can do is give you a different perspective, and hopefully you can kind of identify with the logic of this argument I made today and realize that, again, the polarity you assign to the future, the emotional polarity, is the thing that will create a positive or negative emotional polarity in the future, okay? We manifest reality through the emotional polarity we assign to it. So thanks for watching.